Good evening. When they said there wasn't a Trump supporter here, I think we see a bunch of people in this room that support Trump. I'm here supporting John Collins. He's a man of principle, somebody who I believe in. I believe he can beat Bobby Scott. He just has to have that message out there. I'm going to make sure it's out there. Yeah. I'm here to support all candidates. My name is Merle Rutledge. I'm running for governor of Virginia. And now, if you don't know my name, you're going to eventually find out. We are here to take back Virginia one way or the other. I'm tired of the crap up in Richmond. We see what's happening. They locked us down, took away our churches, tried to take our guns, and then tried to go ahead and take our children. We see the sex trafficking, the opiate addiction. We see the world out of control. And we see BLM and Antifa trying to take over. But I don't fall for the crap. They can say peaceful protests all they want. We see a riot. That's exactly what I'm here to stop. I'm here to bring down also taxes. I'm here to also give our kids a future that John Collins is talking about. I'm also here to fight back. That's exactly what we've been missing in the Republican Party. A new type of Republican attitude that doesn't take no crap from nobody. That's exactly the type of leadership I bring to it. I'm not running off a name. I ain't running off a title. I ain't a politician. I'm a man of principle that stands for you, the American people, and our children. Our children will come first. I believe in Virginia being the parent, being the adult, and not letting the kids bully us. They need to believe in the future that we create for them and let them know that they come first. They have been coming last for too long, and that's exactly what we've seen across America. Right now, we have to be the party that they can come to whenever they're in trouble. Because right now, the Democrats got them blind and in trouble, and we are taking our country back one way or the other. My name is Merle Rutledge. I'm running for governor of Virginia.
I made a bring this friend. Blacks for Trump.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Everybody looks happy and had a great day, even though it's raining outside. The sunshine is on the inside, right?
That's about 49 days from now.
47.
I understand. I'm going to have to take my glasses off because I can't read with my glasses on, AKA I'm nearsighted. But anyway, I'm going to take you guys on a little journey tonight. It's not going to take long. A journey into truth. A deceptive truth in the Black community and the effects of that deceptive truth in the Black community. Does everybody understand that? Mm-hmm. We're going to take a little journey. We're going to go all the way back and discuss all the way up to today what's wrong in the Black community. And probably you already know the answer to this little journey we're going to take. Okay? But in case you don't, that's why I'm here. All right? Facts are stubborn things. Whatever may be our wishes, our inclination, or our dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence that was stated by John Adams. Okay? The reason so many people misunderstand so many issues is not that these issues are so complex, but that people do not want a factual or analytical explanation that does not leave them emotionally satisfied. Everybody with me? Mm-hmm. In other words, if I say something to you, we have a discussion, and in my discussion I say something to you that offends you, I've lost this individual voice. She's not going to hear anything I have to say. She's going to turn it off because whether it's truth or not, it's turned off. Evidence doesn't seem to matter to too many people today. In order to determine what truth is, we have to ask ourselves exactly the meaning of truth. What is truth? Well, let me tell you what it is not. It is not your opinion. Truth under no circumstances is my opinion or yours. There is such a thing as absolute. Okay? Truth is a statement of fact that is supported by evidence. Okay? It is a statement of fact supported by evidence. When facts match reality, that's called truth. Burying truth has left the black community dispossessed. The rewriting of history has enabled a deception beyond comprehension and beyond understanding. Now, what do you mean by that, Julius? What or who has held back the black community in America? What or who has rewritten history? Does anybody in here agree that history has been rewritten?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
If you do, raise your hand. So, who is doing this revision of history? 23 million black babies have been aborted since 1973, but you wouldn't know that. 77% of the black community, family, is single parenting. 2015 stats show that there is a 47% dropout rate between young men in the 9th through high school 12th grade. 47%. I'm going to talk to you tonight about an inconvenient truth about the Democratic Party. Okay? I'm not telling you what I think. I'm not telling you what I've heard. I'm telling you what facts are. Facts of American history based on the Democratic Party from its inception in 1829. Let's get started. When you think of racial equality, which party do you think about? Do you think about Republicans? Does most people think about Republicans, or do they think about the Democratic Party? Democratic. If you say Republican, you're in error. Because that's not what the majority of Americans think when they think about racial equality. They think of the Democratic Party. Let's talk about the Democratic Party. Since its founding in 1829, the Democratic Party has fought against every major civil rights bill and have a long history of racial oppression.
Yep.
In contrast to the Republican Party, which was founded in 1854, does anybody know why it was formed? It was anti-slavery. It was formed by black abolitionists and white congressmen in 1854 in Waupun, Wisconsin, for the sole purpose of stopping the spread of slavery throughout the West and to utterly abolish slavery. How many people knew that? We got to do a better job, right? We got to get the word out. That's why you guys are here tonight, to hear the truth. This is not my truth. This is what your government says. This is in government records. Library of Congress. All this information is right there. And if you think that's bad, let's take a little journey further. Democratic Party, under the effort of a Democrat-controlled Supreme Court, let down or came down with a Supreme Court decision, Dred Scott versus Sanford, that said black Americans were not citizens, they were property. Democrat Supreme Court ruled that. 7-2. They said that people that are my color were property. Democrats, not Republicans. The Republicans dissented. The 2 votes remaining were Republicans. They dissented in that argument. Slavery, as we all know, was ultimately decided by a civil war. Abraham Lincoln being the commander-in-chief at the time. 6 days after the Confederacy surrendered, what happened? Abraham Lincoln gets a bullet in his head. John Wilkes Booth, a Democrat. How many knew that? John Wilkes Booth was a Democrat, and they despised Abraham Lincoln simply because he wanted to give freedom to Black Americans. He's still got a few ways to go here on this journey. Andrew Johnson assumed the presidency after John Wilkes Booth put a bullet in Abraham Lincoln's head. Andrew Johnson hated with a passion what Abraham Lincoln was doing. He was a staunch racist and a Klansman. He had the affiliations of being a Klansman. Okay? The Democratic Party and Andrew Johnson voted against the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Does anybody know what that is? The 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution gave blacks citizenship. The 15th Amendment to the Constitution gave blacks the right to vote. This is Pew Research. Gave them the right to vote. This is 100 to 23% abolishing slavery, 100% Republican support. Given the right to vote, 100% Republican support, 0% Democratic support. Regarding the 14th Amendment, 94% Republican support, 0% Democratic support. Your Democratic Party is a farce. It has been a farce and an evil entity from its very conception in 1829. Now, where along the way did the two parties get ideologically switched? It never happened. The Republicans didn't switch platforms with the Democrats. The Democrats didn't switch platforms with the Republicans. If they did, tell me where they had their convention. It's nowhere in history to be found. It never occurred. But that's the argument you'll get from Democrats today as to why the Republicans are equal. Because they switched platforms. It never happened in American history. In 1866, the Republicans led a charge for the first civil rights bill for Black Americans. In 1866. Did anybody know that? No. 1866, Republicans led the battle to pass the first civil rights bill for Black Americans. So the 1964 Civil Rights Bill is not the original Civil Rights Bill. One was passed in 1866 by Republicans with no Democrat support. Amazing history, isn't it? During Reconstruction, we all know that federal troops were down south maintaining rights for blacks. There were hundreds and hundreds of black legislators in state government. Hundreds. There were 22 congressmen as up until 1900 that had served in the United States Congress. But the Democrats said, well, we got to do something about this. We can't have these people, and I use the term these people lightly. We can't have these people socializing in our nation. So what did they do? What was their answer? Their answer was the Ku Klux Klan. Terror. Terrorize everybody. Are you guys aware that there were white Republican congressmen that were murdered by the Klan? Mm-hmm. Yes. They were not only killing black people, They were murdering white congressmen. Does anybody know why the NRA was established? The NRA was established to give blacks the right to own guns so they can defend themselves. That's a nice tidbit of history, is it not? So I don't understand why all blacks are not part of the NRA. But that's a true aspect fact. It was formed to give blacks the right to own guns so they can defend themselves from the Klan. After Reconstruction ended, everything changed. It went back basically to how the Democrats wanted it. They did not care about blacks. They introduced poll taxes, literacy tests, and everything else they could come up with to keep blacks from voting. Well, don't that sound familiar today?
Yes.
You know, let me show you guys something. And I'm gonna be quick. I'm gonna be wrapping up here in just a moment. I want to show you something. If you are so stupid that you cannot go down to DMV and get a driver's license or an ID, Republican Party is not your problem. If you are illiterate enough that you can't get a driver's license or an ID, which is what the Democrats are claiming, they claim black people are so stupid they cannot get an ID.
Actually, more whites without them.
True, you're right, absolutely right. So, where do we go from here?
It's all a farce.
In the black community has some issues. There's that victimization issue that I want to talk about momentarily. They hold that mentality that a person, because they see themselves as unable to attain, and it's somebody else's fault. That permeates much of the black community. And it is fostered by a Democrat-controlled Congress that keeps blacks under their thumb, under the oppression, and under the welfare state for handouts. The second issue is lack of diversity. Blacks are not diverse as they think they are because they want every black to be monolithic. I'm not monolithic. I'm a Christian, conservative Republican, and I will not change that band. I have never in my life voted Democrat. Never. I'm 64 years old. I will be 65 in February. I have never voted Democrat. Came from a family that did. I've never voted Democrat in my life and never have no plans on it. Urban terrorism. 23 out of 25 American cities, top American cities, are Democrat-ran and failed cities. Crime is abundant everywhere you look. Chicago, Baltimore, Philly, New York, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle. These are Democrat-ran cities. Are you getting the message here? That the problem is not the Republican Party in America. The problem is a Democrat deception, primarily in the black community where truth is concerned. It's not the Republican Party. Never has been. So, proliferation of baby mamas. In other words, 71% of black young women have a child before they graduate high school. 77% of black families are single-parented families. And you want to blame Republicans? I don't think so. Allegiance to the Democratic Progressive Agenda is the death knell. For 80 years since the New Deal, and they switched from being Republicans in general, because after the Civil War ended and the Emancipation Proclamation came forth, black folk, everybody was a Republican. Did you guys know that Martin Luther King was a Republican? Did you know that, say again? Frederick Douglass was a Republican. There are many blacks that were Republicans. First 22 congressmen in the United States Senate or Congress that were black were Republicans.
Republicans, including the Speaker of the House.
Yes, including the Speaker of the House, Republican. Are you guys aware that before George Washington accepted the presidency, that there were black men who led America? Did you know that?
10 of them, wasn't it?
Six.
6 of them?
6 of them. They led America before Washington was inaugurated as the very first president. And they were requested by John Adams, Washington, and I forget the other. So there's a rich history of blacks in America, politically. But the issue tonight is a Democrat lie. We have to combat that, particularly in the black community. And the way you do that is to tell the truth.
Yes.
You have to tell the truth. You have to tell blacks when you talk to them, well, somehow be able to get on the conversation.
Yeah.
You can work your way around. You ladies out cunning. Start a conversation. Same thing goes for the men. Start a conversation and teach. Because if you have a dropout rate that's 47% of black young men don't graduate, what do they know?
Nothing.
How much?
Only what they're
The
told.
Democratic, exactly. Only what they've been told by the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, they thrive on crises. Give them a crisis, they're at home. As long as they are destroying the lives of black Americans and other Americans, they will remain a formidable opponent. But until we get serious and destroy the Democratic Party in America, we haven't done our job.
Amen.
And I do mean destroy. No more effectual in politics in America. With this information, it can be done. You've heard of Blexit. Blacks are waking up all over the country. They are sick and tired of having their vote taken for granted. So in conclusion, who killed Lincoln?
A Democrat.
Who killed John Kennedy? A Democrat. Who killed Martin Luther King? A Democrat. I can go on and on and on. Democrats. So the point I'm making, ladies and gentlemen, on this journey we've taken tonight is this. Truth is the property of being in accord with fact or reality. Facts are stubborn things. And whatever may be our wishes, whatever may be our desires or passions or inclinations, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidences. And finally, the reason so many people misunderstand so many issues is because these issues are not so complex. It is because they do not want a factual or analytical explanation that leaves them emotionally unsatisfied. In other words, I'm not willing to deal with the truth. And no matter how much you talk to me about the truth, I don't want to hear your truth. I don't want to accept your truth. I have given you truth tonight. I've said nothing that is not true. Every word I have spoken to you is true. The Democratic Party is a conundrum. It is an infectious disease upon America. And it is our responsibility to rid it into non-existence. God bless you guys.
Thank you very much. Maybe we could end some of our woes if we could convince Julius to speak to the Democratic Party in Suffolk.
Gladly.
Hey.
Do you have a recording of that?
Do you have a recording or a copy of that that we could get from you by any chance?
Sure.
Okay.
People could
Just
love
rest.
it.
Yeah, because I definitely like to get that.
Dawn has it recorded.
We got a couple of people that we need to get through, and I'm going to call on the former vice chairman of the Suffolk Republican Party. He's with me for 7 years. Thomas Turner, and he's going to give a very quick rundown on the Republican Party of Virginia executive meeting, since he sits on the executive board. So some of you all may be pretty interested in what he's got to say. Come on up, Thomas, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm really excited about the work that's been done here. I am the chairman of the Young Republican Federation of Virginia, and I sit on the executive committee of the Republican Party of Virginia in that capacity. So one of the things I wanted to touch base with everyone on tonight is Amendment 1 to the Constitution of Virginia, which is the formation of the nonpartisan redistricting plan. One of the things I did want to acknowledge is that the Democratic Party and the House Dems, there's a lot that are campaigning against it. Here's the reason why. This plan would actually form a non-redistricting commission, which number one would have equal Republicans and Democrats and members of the judiciary and members and citizens on there. And that would basically, what we're trying to do is get rid of the partisan rigging that's been happening for years on both sides. And so it passed last year pretty easily, last session, not this session, but the last session. However, this past session, under the new House Democratic leadership, they realized that, oh boy, well, if this happens, we won't be able to draw the lines how we want to. They started to give some pushback. Thankfully, the Senate stood firm, and that we did have some Democrats who kept their word and passed it for a second time, so we, the citizens, can vote on that. Currently, the Republican Party of Virginia, under the leadership of our new chairman, Rich Anderson, we will be pushing Amendment 1. The executive committee has met while we're still in the reorganization phases of our state central committee per the party plan, and met to endorse that amendment. And I do recommend that this committee does consider doing that at the next meeting to put on your sample ballot. The reason why this is important is, number one, if this fails and we go into redistricting process, the Democrats will control the lines, which means they will draw us into a permanent minority for the next 10 to 20 years. Number two, it gives citizens more power and control. This is actually a bipartisan effort, as I said before. There are many people on both sides of that have been pushing this for years. But it is important that you guys take time and read this and really, really, really study it, because it is very important. I'm supporting Amendment 1 because it is important that we actually start getting as much policy out of the process as possible. It's not going to get rid of all of it, but it's very important. Tim Anderson actually did a video on this. I believe he did it today. If you guys want to go check it out, it is something that you should consider to check out. It is important. So if you guys have any questions of me with that, I'll take that after I give my other update, which is voter integrity. Actually, during the height of the COVID crisis, I actually signed on to a lawsuit that basically talked about taking away for when you do mail-in voting, the witness requirement. That was specifically for the primary. And unfortunately, we lost that battle. RPV lost that battle. And they took that far off, which we realized that would be a long-standing battle. And I can't disclose further details on the further legal battles that could arise, but we do need to become more vigilant. That's why we are starting an election day task force to make sure that we're making sure the integrity of the vote is protected. Ian Miller I've added him to the chat conversation, and also incorporated our Republicans to represent us on the electoral board, Chairman Rice. I do believe that you guys will probably have her here next month, probably, Mr. Chairman.
Right, Aaron
Yeah.
Weiss would plan.
But it's very important that you guys begin to become vigilant with that, because voting starts tomorrow, and there's no excuse voting. So we do need for Republicans to be vigilant, and making sure that the integrity of the vote is protected, and also ensuring that on elections, you guys really sign up and be poll watchers and poll workers on election day to help observe these matters and help keep the protect the integrity of the vote. It's so important. It's something I've been working on behind the scenes at the party level, and I just want to ensure you that it is important. So if you don't have any specific questions to that, if I can take a couple. Yes,
When you
ma'am.
vote early like this, does it count the same as election day?
Yes.
It's not like the absentee thing.
No,
No.
it's not. it removes, when you vote, you're automatically removed from the poll book at the precinct that you usually vote in.
Yeah.
And if you wish to vote early, in my humble opinion, that's fine. I'm a little concerned about mailing in. I don't know how some of you all feel about that, but because I think I saw the president out my front yard taking my mailbox yesterday morning, But nevertheless, that's, we'll do it and blame it on you type attitude that the Democrats have.
So it's an actual machine when you vote.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I usually vote absentee in person at the registrar. I usually don't vote on election day just because I'm in the field that day and I just make sure I'm able to vote. So, yes, George.
Does anybody know what the process is gonna be? I know when you did the primary voting, you drove up to a COVID tent and somebody came out, did your voting, they took your ballot, of course they're wearing a mask, you don't know who it is, and they take it back into the building. And that bothered me a lot because
That might be a question for Chairman Rice, and I will actually ask her that. But I think at the October meeting, she should probably give you a better, more description. Erin Rice is the chairman of our electoral board. She's the sole Republican, and she's fighting the good fight for us there. So I will recommend that she comes next meeting.
I just don't want a middleman between me and the ballot.
No, I completely
I
understand.
agree.
I agree.
Get it.
I understand your concern there. Yes.
Thomas said the last time I went to the polls, there was option. No, you could still walk into the polls, go ahead and cast your ballot and everything like that. Or if you had that fear of being able to come into a facility to go ahead and vote, they would have one of the folks come on out, registrars come on out.
They wouldn't let us go in.
Well, I'm just saying now,
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's an individual deal or what. But I'm there in Midlandtown, and I went ahead and spoke with them, and they were doing both. Because you could go in, cast your ballot in person, or go out and they send somebody out there to the car and take it. Also with the handicap folks, that didn't change.
Our future congressman.
Thank you, Thomas.
You're welcome, buddy.
I talked to Chesapeake, and I was in Chesapeake last night as well. And the way the registrar explained it there is the cities are supposed to have a voting booth that you actually physically, just as if you were going to the polls. So I'm hoping that we have that here. But more importantly, what I found out when I talked to Nicholas Prophet this afternoon is about half of the people in the May election voted early. And so that is key. Thomas mentioned we need people to work on election day. We also need people to work during early voting.
Yeah.
So if you can help us out with that.
What does that?
Can I add an anecdote?
Yeah.
I'll let Lee. But I want to add an anecdote to that, to those who are concerned about mail-in voting. So, given the numbers of the Chesapeake election, that night, they were down, it was like 10,000 votes hadn't been counted, and they were all absentee, and the Republicans were actually nervous. Because, as you know, we tend not to do well with absentee voting. If you actually, the next morning, it solidified the Republican win. So I do want to make something very clear. I know that you guys are maybe nervous about mail-in voting, and it's just rightly so. Some of it's kind of mucky, especially some of the laws that are coming out this past session, currently in this special session. But if people should still do everything they can to vote early. If you already know, like everyone in this room knows they're voting for Trump, they know they're voting for either Leon Benjamin or John Collett. They already know who they're voting for. If you're already going ahead and go vote, you can go vote in person, you can start the day up, because that's what the Democrats are already telling their people to do. So we need to go on ahead and do the same damn thing. So that's just my 2 cents on that. So everyone in this room, start as soon, first day, go ahead and say, I need to vote. No excuse. If there's no excuse, might as well go do it. And then since you've already taken care of your vote, you can start going back into the field and getting those other people out there to vote too. As soon as they're saying they're voting for Trump, the Republican ticket, you can go do the same thing. I saw a question.
On early voting, they have the ballots the same
because it will have the school board and everybody on
It
it?
is based on your borough, so for instance, the only local race I would have is mayor, because my borough's not up, for the lower offices. But it's based on your borough, so if you live in Whaleyville, you'll have that, you live in Aslan Borough, does that make sense, ma'am?
Yeah.
And it will also have that, your federal candidates, and also those 2 amendments. There are 2 amendments. I can't speak on the second one because I'm ignorant, but but the first one is the one that I know the party is taking a strong position on due to the fact of the Democrats have actually put in their platform that they're against it. So, yes, sir.
I have a comment.
Mhm.
I like facts. I have a sister, lives in Rochester, New York.
Mhm.
She cared for another one of my sisters, passed away 15 years ago. Last week, she got a mail-in ballot for my deceased sister. That I know is true. I've heard of a few other ones. I know of one more that's true, which is in Yates County, North Carolina. Guy's lived in his house for 30 years. He got 5, I don't know what they were, but it was for mail-in voting. I don't know whether they're called ballots or applications or what, because I didn't see them. Okay, so with those statements being made, how is that being protected from, to me, that's fraudulent. How is that being protected?
Well,
I can speak to that.
please.
There's a private organization out there that has mailed out ballot applications around the country. And up in Fairfax, they told people to send them back to the wrong places. They sent them up to Fairfax County, said, hey, send these into Fairfax City. They sent them to folks in Fairfax City, gave the address to Fairfax County. Throw them away. Okay, they look identical to the ones that you would get from your city registrar, but they're not. And they're not ballots. They're requests for ballots. So in Virginia, the easiest thing to do is if you want an absentee ballot, request it. There is a difference between the mail-in ballot and the absentee. The mail-in, nobody requests it. They send you a ballot. That doesn't sound like what you just described. But the absentee is what you go online and say, I don't want to vote, on election day. I want you to send me a ballot and I'll fill it out. And you can actually take that down to the early voting location, to the registrar's office. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I still feel.
If you could write down your question,
Okay.
and I will see if I can ask RPB General Counsel
Okay,
in more
I'll
detail.
get your name now, because I want to
Yeah,
get a picture of what my sister was actually.
Yeah,
saying.
let's
That'd be
talk, just for the sake of, I want to respect the time of everyone.
Right,
So yeah, let's talk, because the RPB General Counsel, Chris Marson, is actually helping leading this charge. We also have Clarabelle Wheeler, for many of you don't know her, she served on the electoral board at the state level, for many years, she's a fighter. And she took on 2 very strong leftist Dems on that board in the minority. And also Barbara Tabb, who I don't know if many of y'all know her. She used to serve on State Central, but she's also the chair of the Electoral Officers Association.
Yeah.
And she knows the electoral law. So I will forward your question up that way, and I'll help to get an answer. Hopefully get it to you soon.
My husband passed away September 20th of 2019.
I did not know that. I'm so sorry.
And, well, thank you. But I went down to make sure he wasn't gonna be dead and vote Democrat. And they'd already removed him from the voters roll. I don't know if that's because he was Republican or whether that was just that. But the state of Virginia had already removed him.
Well,
We got a lot of work to do with voter
But I didn't want him
rolls.
to roll over in his grave.
So,
We got almost
I,
350,000 dead folks on the voter rolls
Yes.
still.
Okay,
That's
you're
a
talking
problem.
about getting that mail-in thing.
In Virginia?
I'm a very big fan.
I'm not sure if it's Virginia, but I heard a report today, there's 350,000 dead on the rolls still.
One sister-in-law
That's crazy.
got this ballot, this fraudulent ballot.
yeah, so if anyone has any of those type of issues that they've gotten or they've personally received, just come see me after the meeting just for the sake of time. Give me your name and email so I can get that over, see if I can talk to Chris and see what, Chris Marson, see what's going on with that. Just to do a final thing is really take time to go on the state election site and look at Amendment 1. It is very important. I cannot stress that enough. That you tell every conservative and Republican out there to vote for this. The Democrats, there are a group on the Democratic side that are pushing this. It is a bipartisan move. Thankfully, that most of the Democrats on the Senate side are supporting this full-heartedly, but a lot of the Democrats are pushing to block this because they know redistricting is coming up next year. Guys, make sure all your Republicans have done the census. This is very important. Literally, it is very important. And if anyone tells you like I don't want to do it, and they're like, and you just like in the book of Numbers, there was a census. Like literally, that's what that book of the Bible is about. So let's just make sure that we do this. Make sure we do the census. Make sure we vote on Constitutional Amendment 1. It will put us back in the playing field to take back the House next year, but we have to do the groundwork now by flipping this state red, getting John Collins to Congress, getting one of our own out of this committee to Congress that we know is a diehard conservative, getting our friend Leon Benjamin, supporting our president, and kicking out Mark Warner. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.